happened to my Aunt Min on an ordinary Thursday morning. She was 76, bright-eyed, sharp-minded, and proud of keeping her kitchen spotless. Every morning she'd have her black coffee, slice a piece of her favorite bread, and prepare a few fruits for her grandchildren's visit. She was careful, health-conscious, and always one step ahead of time. Or so we thought. That morning, she didn't get up. We later learned it wasn't a fall, a heart attack, or her long-managed diabetes. The doctors were blunt: severe food-borne illness. Her immune system, weakened by age, had been quietly battling harmful bacteria that had grown in the most unexpected of places: her refrigerator. Yes, the very appliance we've all trusted to keep us safe. I remember standing in her kitchen days later, staring at her fridge. It still hummed quietly, filled with everyday foods: bananas, garlic, bread, tomatoes. Familiar, harmless. Or so we believed. That was the beginning of my journey, the reason I'm sharing this story with you now. Because my aunt's story isn't just her own. It's happening to seniors across the world, quietly, tragically, unnecessarily. Not from ignorance, but from trust. Trust in habits no one ever warned us to question. If you're over 60 or you love someone who is, what I'm about to share could truly matter. You see, not all foods belong in the refrigerator. In fact, some of them turn dangerous when they're kept cold. And the worst part? These aren't exotic foods. They're the staples: potatoes, onions, bread, garlic, olive oil, things you likely use every day. This isn't about fear, it's about awareness. It's about taking back control of something as basic and as vital as how we store the food that nourishes us. So today, I want to walk you through 9 everyday foods that, when refrigerated, quietly become threats, especially for the elderly. I'll tell you real stories of joy, of warning, of second chances. Because this is more than a list. It's a wake-up call wrapped in compassion. And at the end, my hope is simple: that your kitchen will feel a little safer and your meals a little more nourishing. Because every small choice we make matters, especially after 60. Chapter 1. The Morning That Changed Everything. Margaret was the kind of woman who took pride in routine. Every morning at exactly 6:15, she'd rise from bed, slip on her knitted slippers, and shuffle toward the kitchen with the same soft determination she'd carried for over 80 years. The kettle would be whistling by 6:30, and her breakfast, a slice of toast with honey, a banana, and one perfectly brewed cup of coffee, would be waiting by the window where the morning light poured in like a blessing. That Tuesday started no differently, at least not on the surface. Margaret didn't know that inside her fridge sat quiet threats, dressed in innocence, ordinary foods she had trusted for decades. She didn't know that her years of diligently refrigerating tomatoes, coffee, garlic, and bread were slowly shifting her health in ways that wouldn't show up for weeks, maybe months, but would one day arrive, uninvited, as a consequence she never saw. It all began with a fall. Not a dramatic one, not the kind they warn you about in the hospital flyers with bold headlines and safety checklists. It happened just after breakfast. Margaret stood to rinse her plate, and her legs buckled under her. Her daughter, Lisa, found her a few minutes later, conscious, bruised, confused. At the hospital, the doctors found nothing broken, but they did find a problem. Margaret's blood sugar had crashed. Her blood pressure was erratic, her digestion sluggish, her immune markers lower than expected. "She's eating well," Lisa told the doctor. "Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nothing processed. She's careful." The doctor looked at Lisa with the kind of pause that precedes a surprising truth. "Do you know what she's storing in her refrigerator?" Lisa blinked. "You mean food?" That was the first time either of them heard that a fridge, trusted, cold, reliable, could be quietly making things worse. It wasn't about food going bad in the obvious sense. There was no mold, no foul smell. It was subtler, more dangerous. A slow degradation of nutrients, of textures, of chemical structures that changed the way food behaved once it entered the body. And for someone like Margaret, over 80, with a naturally weakened immune system, that subtle difference could mean the line between vitality and vulnerability. And Ben, talk. That night, Margaret's fridge became the focus of an investigation. Not just what was in it, but why it was there. What began as a daughter trying to protect her mother turned into a revelation that would change the way they saw food, aging, and the quiet dangers hidden in everyday routines. This story isn't just Margaret's. It belongs to millions of seniors who, with the best intentions, are unknowingly sabotaging their health through habits formed in different times, under different rules. It's about what we think keeps us safe and what actually does. And it all starts with 9 common foods that should never have made their way into the fridge in the first place. In the chapters to come, you'll meet the foods, the science, and the stories behind them. You'll discover why storing a banana in the fridge might be doing more harm than good, how honey turns toxic under the wrong conditions, and why coffee might be hurting your body before it even hits your mug. But more than that, you'll walk with Margaret and Lisa, 2 women connected by love, learning how to unlearn what they thought they knew and finding new strength in something as simple as storing a potato in the right place. Sometimes saving a life doesn't require medicine, just a little awareness and the courage to change. Chapter 2. The refrigerator that didn't keep her safe. It was nearly midnight when Lisa returned to her mother's house alone. Margaret was still under observation at the hospital, and Lisa had offered to come back to grab a few essentials, her mother's glasses, her robe, her favorite book. But standing there in the quiet kitchen, where every teacup and every spoon had a memory, Lisa found herself pausing in front of the refrigerator. The white door stood silently in the corner, humming softly, a fixture so ordinary, so trusted, that she had never once questioned it. Until now. She opened it slowly, as if peeling back a mystery. Inside, neatly arranged containers, baskets of fresh produce, a jar of garlic cloves floating in olive oil, a bunch of bananas darkening near the top shelf. Nothing seemed alarming. Nothing looked spoiled. But her mother had fainted today. Her blood sugar had dropped. Her blood pressure had gone haywire. And the doctor's words echoed again. Do you know what she's storing in her refrigerator? Lisa pulled out her phone. She searched, foods you should not refrigerate. What she found stopped her cold. Potatoes, bananas, onions, coffee, garlic, honey, bread, tomatoes, olive oil. She looked again at her mother's fridge and saw nearly every single one of those items right there, inside the very place that was supposed to protect them. Her breath caught. Was it possible that something as simple, as well-meaning as putting food in the fridge could have slowly worked against her mother's health? She clicked on the first article, then another, then a research study. She read about potatoes, how cold temperatures turn their starch into sugar, which becomes harmful when cooked at high heat, producing a compound linked to cancer. She learned about onions, how the fridge's humidity breaks down their natural protective skin, inviting mold into their layers before it's even visible. Bread, which dries out faster and becomes a haven for mold in cold air. Bananas, robbed of their nutrients and texture, confused by the cold. Even garlic, which when stored in oil in the fridge could harbor deadly bacteria like Clostridium botulinum 1, of the most dangerous toxins known to man. Lisa clutched the jar of garlic and stared at it. She had made that jar herself for her mother a few weeks ago. A sweet gesture, a little gift of love. Was it possible that love, without knowledge, had become a risk? She felt a mix of fear and guilt, but also something else. She pulled out a paper and pen from the kitchen drawer, the one her mother always used to write grocery lists, and began a new list, one that felt far more urgent. Foods to remove from the fridge. Each item was a small rebellion, a quiet promise. Not just to reorganize the kitchen, but to protect her mother, to choose awareness over assumption, to unlearn habits that no longer serve. She moved slowly, respectfully, because every jar, every bag, every shelf carried her mother's routines, her history, her trust. But sometimes love means letting go of what you've always done, so you can do better now. By 1 a.m., the fridge looked different, lighter, cleaner. Lisa stood back, hands on her hips, her heart still heavy but a little steadier. Because now she wasn't afraid of the fridge. She understood it. And understanding real, grounded, science-backed awareness was the first step in helping her mother not just recover, but live longer, stronger, and wiser. And it all started with 9 quiet food choices that had gone unquestioned for too long. Chapter 3. The Potato Mistake. Margaret had always loved potatoes. Baked, mashed, roasted, she called them her comfort food. Lisa remembered countless childhood meals with golden potato wedges crisp to perfection, filling the kitchen with warmth. And in recent years, they'd become even more frequent in Margaret's meals. Easy to prepare, gentle on her stomach, and versatile. But ever since her arthritis had worsened, she'd started storing everything within reach, including raw potatoes, in the refrigerator. "I read they last longer cold," she'd told Lisa once. Lisa never questioned it, until the doctor mentioned acrylamide A compound formed when cold-stored potatoes were cooked at high temperatures. In animal studies, it had been linked to nerve damage and cancer risk. In humans, the research was still emerging. But for seniors, especially with weakened systems, the risk wasn't one to ignore. As Lisa pulled the bag of sprouting potatoes from the fridge that night, she felt a lump form in her throat. Margaret had thought she was doing the right thing, but that cold storage had slowly been altering the very chemistry of her food. The fries Margaret loved, the roasted potatoes she ate 3 nights a week, they weren't just comfort anymore. They might have been quietly chipping away at her health. It wasn't about fear, it was about knowledge, choices, adjustments. Lisa placed the potatoes gently into a basket in the pantry, away from the fridge's chill. She scribbled a note and stuck it to the fridge door. No more cold for the spuds. It was a small change, but it was the beginning. Chapter 4. Bread, Mold, and What No One Told Her. Margaret had a ritual. Every morning began with a slice of toast, lightly browned, spread with jam, and paired with her favorite chamomile tea. It was a habit she cherished. Familiar, soothing. But over time, something changed. Lisa first noticed it when Margaret started coughing more often in the mornings. Just a light throat clearing at first, then a wheeze, sometimes even a sneeze she couldn't explain. No. Lisa thought it might be seasonal, allergies perhaps, but the house was clean, no dust, no pets. Nothing had changed, except the bread. That week, Lisa reached into the fridge to grab the loaf. It was stiff, dry, and oddly cold to the touch. The expiration date hadn't passed, but when she pulled the last few slices apart, she saw tiny green spots blooming like quiet invaders in the corners. Mold? And in that moment, something clicked. The fridge hadn't preserved the bread, it had betrayed it. The cold had drawn out the moisture, creating condensation, and that dampness had become the perfect hiding place for mold spores. Most of us wouldn't think twice. A little mold? Just toss the slice and keep going. But for someone like Margaret, whose immune system was already slowing, whose lungs were sensitive, those spores were anything but harmless. In fact, seniors were particularly vulnerable to mycotoxins, the toxic byproducts some molds release. They don't just irritate, they infect. They weaken. They spread quietly. Lisa stood frozen with guilt. How long had her mother been eating from this same loaf? How many spores had they missed, hiding invisibly on the good slices? That night, Lisa tossed every loaf they had in the fridge. She bought a fresh one the next morning, and this time stored it in a bread box on the counter. She sliced half and froze the rest. And Margaret? Her cough disappeared within days. Sometimes it's not about overhauling everything, it's about not refrigerating the bread, about learning what no one tells you, about making one safer choice before breakfast, and realizing that even the smallest adjustments can quietly protect the person you love most. Chapter 5. The Onion That Changed Everything. Margaret had always loved cooking. Even at 78, she insisted on making her own soup. Onion, carrot, a bit of garlic, slow simmered until the house smelled like memories. But one afternoon, Lisa came home to something different. The kitchen reeked, not of herbs or warmth, but of something sour, musty. Faint at first, but unmistakable. When she opened the fridge, it hit harder. A strange, sharp scent clung to everything. The butter, the yogurt, even the apples. "What's that smell?" Lisa asked, wrinkling her nose. Margaret shrugged. "Maybe the onions?" In the back of the fridge sat a plastic bag with 2 yellow onions, partially peeled, stored in a way Margaret thought was tidy. But when Lisa picked one up, it was soft, almost damp. And when she looked closer, the layers had turned translucent. rubbery with a hint of green fuzz hiding underneath. It wasn't just spoiled, it was sick. Refrigerating whole onions, Lisa later learned, breaks down their protective skins. The cold, humid environment causes them to absorb moisture they're not meant to handle. That trapped water breeds mold between the layers, sometimes invisible to the eye. Worse, their pungent scent spreads. Onions are aromatic powerhouses, and when stored near dairy, they quietly infect other foods with their smell and even their flavor. Margaret hadn't noticed. Her sense of smell had dulled with age. But Lisa had, and suddenly everything made sense. Why the cheese tasted strange, why the milk seemed off before its time, why Margaret's soup hadn't tasted like hers in weeks. And more importantly, why Margaret had been feeling a little nauseous lately. It hadn't been the soup, it had been the spoiled onion hiding inside it. That night, Lisa cleaned the entire fridge. Every item scrubbed, every questionable food tossed. The onions, they were relocated to a cool, dry basket in the pantry, where they belonged, out of the cold, free to breathe. Margaret, watching quietly from the kitchen table, finally asked, "Do you think it was the onions all along?" Lisa smiled gently. Sometimes it's the small things. A spoiled onion, a hidden danger, a habit no one questioned. Until they had to. Because for older adults, the refrigerator isn't just a place of convenience. It's a place where small mistakes, like putting the wrong food in the wrong place, can slowly, quietly become a risk. And sometimes all it takes to protect someone you love is to open the fridge and look a little closer. Chapter 6. The Bananas That Stopped Smiling. There was a bowl on Mrs. Thin's kitchen counter, a ceramic dish with faded blue flowers and a small chip on the edge. In it every week she placed 6 bright yellow bananas, curved like little smiles, soft and sweet. It was her favorite fruit, light, easy on her stomach, perfect for her blood pressure. She'd eat half a banana with warm oatmeal every morning while the radio played songs from the past. Then one day, her daughter Mai noticed something had changed. "Why are your bananas in the fridge?" she asked, opening the refrigerator and seeing the once cheerful fruit lined up beside the milk carton, their peels dark and stiff. Mrs. Tun gave a tired shrug. "They spoil too quickly now." She wasn't wrong. Ever since the weather had turned warmer, the bananas had ripened faster than she could eat them. So one morning she'd decided to put them in the fridge. It seemed harmless, logical even. But after a few days, something strange started to happen. The bananas turned black on the outside and mushy in odd patches. Some were still too firm in the center, others oddly watery. Worst of all, Mrs. Than had stopped eating them. "The body tastes wrong," she said. Mai looked it up later that night and felt a wave of guilt. She didn't know either. Bananas are tropical fruits. Their enzymes are designed to work in warm temperatures. The cold doesn't just slow ripening, it stops it, then ruins it. Inside the fridge, bananas don't ripen, they rot. The skin darkens, the nutrients, especially the antioxidants like dopamine that support brain function, start to break down. And in ripe bananas, the cold causes trapped moisture to pool near the stem, creating the perfect breeding ground for mold spores. That explained the odd smell in the fridge, and maybe, just maybe, it explained the strange stomach discomfort her mother had mentioned recently. "I thought it was just old age," Mrs. Tan had said. It wasn't. It was a banana that was no longer kind to her. Mai threw out the cold bananas that night. She replaced them with a fresh bunch the next morning and hung them from a small hook on the wall, just like her mother used to do. Within 2 days, the smiles were back, on the bananas and on her mother's face. Sometimes, good habits fade, small shortcuts creep in. The fridge becomes a storage space for everything, until one day, it quietly takes away something that brought joy. A banana isn't just fruit, it's memory, nourishment, a small ritual that gives shape to a morning. And when that ritual fades, something inside the day fades with it. So keep them out of the fridge, let them ripen with grace. Because for someone like Mrs. Thon, a banana wasn't just a snack. It was the beginning of everything. Chapter 7. When olive oil turned its back. There was something sacred about the way Mr. Hung used olive oil. Each morning, he would take out the dark green bottle from the cabinet, just as he'd done for years. A soft drizzle over boiled vegetables, a spoonful into warm porridge. Sometimes, just a drop rubbed into his joints when the cold returned to his bones. He didn't know all the science behind it, but he knew it was good for his heart. His wife had read about it in a magazine decades ago. Liquid gold, she called it. And so it stayed, like a quiet promise on the kitchen shelf. That changed the year his granddaughter moved in. Worried about preserving everything properly, she cleaned the kitchen from top to bottom. She rearranged things, made space, labeled containers, and placed the olive oil in the refrigerator. Just to keep it fresh, she said. Mr. Hong didn't argue. He appreciated the help. But within weeks, things changed. The oil thickened, turned cloudy. It was hard to pour, hard to use. The flavor lost its brightness. The soft warmth it added to his meals was now dull and lifeless. He thought maybe it was age, his taste fading. But it wasn't him. It was the oil. Olive oil doesn't belong in the cold. Chilling causes its antioxidants, polyphenols, vitamin E, to break down. The oil begins to oxidize when repeatedly moved from cold to warm, forming harmful compounds, the very ones it's supposed to fight. Instead of protecting Mr. Hung's heart, it began quietly betraying it. His granddaughter meant well, but even good intentions can go wrong without knowledge. So when she saw him reach for the fridge again one evening, she paused. "Grandpa," she said gently, "why don't we put it back where you used to keep it?" He smiled. He'd been waiting for that moment. They brought out the bottle and placed it on the shelf beside his tea tins. The next morning, the oil was smooth again, warm in color, like it remembered its place in the world. Mr. Hung tasted his breakfast slowly. It reminded him of his wife. And for the first time in weeks, he felt something come back to life. A quiet warmth from the inside out. Final chapter. The refrigerator was never the enemy. This story, in the end, isn't really about the fridge. It's about the trust we place in routines without questioning them, about how convenience sometimes replaces care, and how small changes over time become big consequences, especially when it comes to food and age. 9 foods, 9 seemingly simple things. But behind each one is a life, a rhythm, a memory. Bread that used to remind you of your mother's kitchen. Bananas that made your grandchildren smile. Garlic that turned your soup into medicine. And suddenly, without knowing, you lose more than flavor, you lose connection. But there's good news. You can bring it back. You don't need to overhaul your life. You just need to look a little closer. Ask a few more questions. Let old wisdom sit beside new knowledge. And most of all, remember this. You're not too old to learn, not too far along to change. Each choice you make today, how you store your food, what you eat, how you protect your body, is a way of saying, I still matter. So take the potatoes out of the fridge, hang your bananas with care, keep your honey warm, your olive oil in the dark, and remember that the small things you do for your body, especially after 60, are not small at all. They are sacred. Because they keep you here, healthy, steady, strong. And we still need you. Thank you for walking through this journey. If it made you reflect, feel something, or even smile, then it was worth every word. Until next time, be well, take care of your kitchen, and most of all, take care of yourself.